Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about a very important regional issue, and that is about the presence of ISIS-K, the Islamic State of Khorasan in Afghanistan. Now they are in fact, because we all believe they're a non-state actor, and interestingly what is happening now is that they're gaining strength. They've also gotten themselves registered another party that is perhaps an anti-Taliban faction. They have registered themselves in United States of America, has also recognized them as a political party. Now the interesting part is that when we talk about ISIS-K, we all know that it's a spoiler, that is the only perhaps regional threat in the region, and that has to be eliminated. This is not only the demand of the countries surrounding Afghanistan, but also from the Western countries and in particular by the United States of America. But the question is that who is supporting them, who is financing them, who is in fact giving them the equipment and the assets to fight, and at the end of the day somebody is also pouring in a lot of money. And we all know that the role of the Indians, that's pretty dubious over here. And this is the, in fact, problem, perhaps the reason that the National Security Advisor is not going to attend the meet in India, New Delhi, in the coming weeks. But having said that, things are still pretty stiff. Now, before I introduce you to our panelists and we talk about this perception and the threat that prevails in the region and how to sort of combat that, we have prepared a report. Let's watch that and then we'll continue our discussion.
Two explosions and the following heavy gunfire on Sardar Daud Khan Military Hospital in Kabul on 2nd November 2021 was a proof that 20 years of military presence of United States within Afghanistan proved to be unsuccessful in terms of establishing positive, traditional as well as non-traditional security in Afghanistan. Afghan Interior Ministry representative officially confirmed that at least 19 people were killed and 43 others were wounded in this attack. But there are reports of a much higher death toll from the blasts. The Islamic State in Khorasan province later claimed the bombing in a statement released on Telegram channels, saying that 5 Islamic State group fighters carried out simultaneously coordinated attacks. The ramping up terrorist activities of Islamic State in Khorasan province since the United States left Afghanistan is loosening the grip of the Taliban on the efficient governing of Afghanistan, as well as to prove themselves worthy of legitimate political entity in the international arena. Such attacks are making the war-torn citizens of Afghanistan to battle with not only the economic crisis but also a constant survival threat due to the terrorism. Undoubtedly, Pakistan, Russia and China as the regional stakeholders are consistently trying to engage Afghanistan as a productive regional and international political entity, but the terroristic infiltration and presence in Afghanistan are blocking the efforts of these regional stakeholders.
Now let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio, on my right is Dr. ZAFAR JASPAL Saab. Dr. Saab is an expert on foreign affairs and international relations. Thank you so much, Dr. JASPAL, for your presence, sir. Thank you. And then we have with us SAIFULLAH MAHSUD Saab. He is the president of FATA Research Center, which is called FRC. Thank you so much, Mahsud Saab, for your time, sir. And we also have with us on Skype Lieutenant General retired AMJAD Saab, who is a senior analyst and an expert on defense strategies. General Saab, pleasure to have you on the show, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, if you allow me, if I may start from General Saab. General Saab, number one, very straightforward question, sir. Now, ISK, the Islamic State of Khorasan, I mean, this was something which we used to hear, but there was hardly any presence of such members of this particular band outfit. But sir, having said that, now it seems that a lot of people have been exported from Syria and Iraq into Afghanistan. And this is not what I'm saying, sir. This is what the former President Hamid Karzai also mentioned about the mystery helicopters and about the droppings of the assets and the basic requirements, you know, when you have to fight a guerrilla war or something of a similar sort in the region, sir. Now perhaps they have become a threat. The current situation in Afghanistan we are all well aware of, but so this recent wave of violence, whether it's the bombing in the mosques on Fridays or perhaps it's the attack on the hospital or roadside bombings, whether you talk about the bombing at the Kabul airport, sir, I mean, so many precious lives have been lost. Now, what seems to be the agenda, sir, Another turmoil or elimination of the Afghan Taliban? What exactly is happening, and what sort of a perception is being created against the Taliban in the region, sir?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As far as the Khorasan chapter is concerned, these were the people originally, they were some splinter groups from TTP, there were some Punjabi Talibans who were there, and also Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, and you can say some terrorists from Balochistan, like Jundallah, etc. Now, all of them, this Khorasan chapter was created by India. These people were put together, and they were to be employed in Pakistan. They were employed in Pakistan. They never carried out any act of terrorism in Afghanistan till we had this incident of airport bombing. Before that, they had been very active in Pakistan, and Indian efforts were that they should be able to create a sort of network of this Daesh in Pakistan, which perhaps they couldn't. But at the same time, we saw that these Khorasan chapter people were very active, and most of the attacks on various shrines were carried out by this group. And there were a lot of killings too. Now, India, as they have been funding, controlling, they had complete control on this setup, and now I think this is going to be rebuilt, expanded, and various types of people are going to be inducted, particularly the Afghan army people who are no longer serving with the army because the army has been almost disbanded. It has collapsed. It is not there. And and they cannot be re-inducted because Afghan Taliban, they do not have any money to pay these people. Their intelligence setup, their military setup, and also the police, etc. Everything has collapsed. And they have not been brought back to the offices because there's no money to pay them. So naturally, anyone who pays them today, he will be able to buy their loyalties or buy their services. Money, you know, it is the Western world which has the money, and they keep on pumping. And the sources they are using are their old sources. They have their proxies also, but at the same time, Amrullah Saleh, Muhib, this fellow, Ashraf Ghani, etc. All those those people who are sitting outside, sitting abroad, they have their own chains, and this money is going to go back to various terror groups, and ultimately you'll see Daesh will be the main group which will be used to dislodge the Taliban. That is what the plan is, because for 20 years America fighting and they couldn't remove them, they couldn't eliminate them, and now they are using the same. You can say the same strategy which Taliban were using against Americans. Now Taliban have a government, they want to create stability, and the stability is going to be destroyed through insurgency, and insurgency led by Daesh. So Daesh now will be strengthened, and you have seen that within 2 days they have already created so much of chaos in Afghanistan that even one of their very senior commanders has been killed. So the situation now is being controlled by America and also by India. These are the two players. Americans want to share the intelligence, and they are pressurizing the neighboring countries to help them out so that they can use their drones, etc. But this will be a very dicey affair because the drones perhaps will be utilized against the Taliban. So that will weaken the government in Afghanistan, and ultimately it will be detrimental to the interest of all the neighbors. So there's a complex situation which is developing, and this will further deteriorate if we do not help the Afghan government with money, with food, with weapons, etc., whatever they need. Because today they are not able to exercise complete writ on the country because of such like difficulties. So I think it is a very, very big challenge which is coming up for them, and regional countries have to take notice of it, because otherwise our own security is going to be jeopardized because of the instability in Afghanistan.
Or now, Dr. Saab, as Jalal Saab says that situation is getting deteriorated. I mean, on each passing day. I mean, looking at the current situation, sir, where a certain group or a faction is being supported by the United States of America along with the Indians, because perhaps they have a similar narrative as far as that particular country is concerned. Now, sir, considering the overall situation, initially we all thought that when we heard that $83 billion worth of weapons are with the Taliban, and they don't want anything else, they just want some sort of a financial support so they can run the day-to-day business. But sir, that support seems to be missing, and it seems that the Western world in particular, along with all the adversaries of the Taliban, they really want that perhaps Afghanistan should be in turmoil, there should be a proper chaos, there should be some sort of a rights situation where there is acute shortage of food or medicine and so on and so forth, and then something would happen. I mean, they really want the Taliban to be eliminated, sir, if not through the use of force, but otherwise, because governance at the end of the day is a mega problem, so it's not a joke and a half. Now, looking at this situation, sir, don't you think the situation is already developed? It's not in a developing phase anymore, sir. The threat is clear, the writing is on the wall, and it's bold and pretty bright, sir.
No, when from the beginning, when the Taliban entered in the Kabul, from that day we were aware that there will be an alternative force to the Taliban. Taliban was not a, what we call it, all-inclusive kind of a force. That's why the government of Pakistan or others were encouraging or advising the Taliban that they try to make the inclusive government. But if the Taliban thinks that they can manage Afghanistan alone, within the Afghanistan, they have to not forget that there are dissident groups within their own ranks and files. At the same time, there are certain challenges to them as well in the Afghanistan. So now when they fail to engage the other parties, whether they were ex-government or other factions, naturally they have to constitute as an alternative force. And now we are seeing that alternative force is now coming under the banner of the Islamic State, or this is number one. Number two, once the alternative force there is, that the countries with whom there is some kind of a support, let's say stability in Afghanistan is in the interest of the Russians and in the interest of the Chinese. Instability in Afghanistan undermines their economic and security, you can say, pursuits in this region. So certainly the Daesh drive, and you can say some kind of the, at least not even a material, but or some kind of a support, whether it's a political, material, economic, from those whom this anarchy is suitable to their regional and global agenda. So there's no need to go for a finger pointing, but we have to not forget that there is still 3,000 plus CIA army present in Afghanistan. There are other these kind of the factions.
So what are they doing there, sir?
So naturally they are looking after the...
This is what the purpose was.
Yeah, their purpose was very clear, that what they have to do. They have to defend the interest of their own masters. So in that context, when we are looking, and we have to not forget that Islamic or Daesh lost its credibility in the Middle East, but here it has a more opportunity.
And what's the reason for that, sir?
Because when it was even in the Syria or in that part of the world, many fighters were exported from here there, from Afghanistan.
Even from Pakistan.
They were from Pakistan. They were from the China. They were from the Chechnya or the Russia, from the Central Asia. Now from there, when they returned, so naturally they again ganged up. And in that context, as you have very rightly pointed out, and our foreign minister also in a one dossier mentioned that this generally when this Daesh created a Walai Hind, Walai Pakistan, but here we are seeing that it is also now recipient of or becoming a proxy in the hands of the Indians or others. Maybe they are not ideologically on the same page, but for material or for common or identical enemy, they are on the same page. And unfortunately, the Taliban failed to realize the, you can say, this kind of a challenge. They were thinking that with this, when they are coming, but they have to not forget that their impact in the last 2 decades was because they were using the asymmetrical warfare strategy. And now their opponents will use the same. And when they are not getting any financial support, within 6 months, when the spring comes, they will lose the credibility and they will be maybe facing a challenge of survival in Kabul. So that kind of the things we have to not forget. So the irony is, and where the great powers or the Europeans they are looking, or maybe they are looking that the crisis, continuity of the crisis is in their advantage because it make the soft belly more vulnerable of the Russians.
That's
and
the way
also
they want to
create
keep
a
it.
trouble for in the West China. But they are forgetting that if this kind of anarchy continues, these groups will become also threat for them as well, for their interest as well. And that is the reason that we have to see that they have to also not forget Al-Qaeda or this Daesh, and especially Daesh and now Khilafat. Khilafat has a bigger, and it is not believing in the nation state or a modern territorial state where you bring the Khilafat in. So naturally it will be appealing again to these kind of the radicalized groups. And if you see in the trend in the Europe, trend in the South Asia, trend in the rest of the world is now once again in favor of populist or nationalist leadership. And when you have a populist and national leadership, they create more, you can say, cleavages or differences within the societies, and where the Muslims minorities will be on the receiving end, definitely they welcome these kind of the groups, and they will be going to further create a problem. So the problem with which we have been living this, which we call it militancy, radicalized militancy, I think that if the Afghanistan will be not addressed with a holistic approach.
And it won't be, sir.
And there will be no peace. And if there's no peace, this group will be having more centuries. And second important thing is that what is the nature of the economy in Afghanistan? The nature of the economy is illegal. Illegal. And where there is an illegal economy, their warlordism or these kind of the groups further prosper because they are in
that's just the breeding ground, basically.
So for them, not only breeding, recruiting, but they have more opportunities for the economics because there's no rules of the games. So by this way, if you are talking about smuggling, if you are talking about XY, certainly they don't need to receive money from anyone. They generate money by themselves.
For example, drug trade and so much more. Now, Mahsud Sahab, there were reports that since there is an absolute financial crunch as far as the Taliban are concerned, and that's a reality also. They're demanding, but there is a certain limit that the regional countries can help. But sir, the real issue now seems to be that there are reports that there are a lot of people from the Taliban ranks and file, sir, who are joining hands with such non-state actors, perhaps because of the amount of money they get, I mean, whatever number of dollars they receive. If that is the case, sir, then it seems that the loyalty isn't there. It's more about the financial issue, because if you're hungry, sir, your narrative might be whatever it is, but at the end of the day you have to look after your family, your kids, yourself and your needs. So when it comes to that, sir, then dollars do matter, don't they?
Well, they do, but besides dollars, there are other things that matter as well. Defections from the Taliban to the IS are not new. The first significant defection was back in 2014 when Mullah Abdul Rauf Khadim, who was part of the first Taliban government in Afghanistan and was also a very active member of the insurgency against US occupiers, he was the one who joined. So for ideological reasons, for people for whom the Taliban ideology, the IEE ideology is not radical enough, is not pure enough, they are also prone to, kind of join Taliban, Daesh in big numbers. Besides that, after the Taliban took over power in Kabul, you have to see they have to transition. They are in a transitional phase from an insurgency, from a militant group, they are transitioning into a formal government. That transition, they will have teething problems, and they're having. There are a lot of people among them who are nostalgic about, the days of the war. When you monitor their Twitter spaces, when you monitor their social media, you come across a lot of debate, where people very fondly remember the days when they were fighting against the Americans. So that too is at the back of their mind. Plus since Afghanistan is, Taliban are now a formal government, there not been a de jure recognition of their government in Kabul, but there is de facto recognition in that, UN agencies including have dealt with them as if they were the legal government in Kabul. So with that in mind, the Taliban have to, fulfill their international obligations. They are under obligations through the Doha Agreement that they will not be, allowing people to use the Afghan soil, for attacks against.
But there were certain other commitments also. They haven't been fulfilled yet.
I mean, but the most important one, see the selling point of the Taliban to the outside world, why they have accepted the Taliban, as the government in Kabul, is because, of the fact that they were perceived to have the power, the resources, to ensure security on Afghan soil and thereby prevent, non-state actors from Afghan soil, harming other states. So with that in mind, there was sort of a welcome that was extended to the Taliban. Although, as I said, there is no de jure recognition, but de facto recognition is there, as demonstrated by the various, foreign ministers and, other dignitaries from different European and even the US countries that have, visited Taliban from time to time in Kabul and also met them in Doha. So with that in mind, a lot of Taliban are not happy with the
There were
Ali
also reports
government.
that those who are at the top level of decision making in the Taliban ranks, their ideology is now getting a little different from those who are actually fighting on ground. So is this the bone of contention at the
So
moment?
the
sir?
whole movement is transitioning. It's not just the leadership at the top, but they have to take the rank and file with them. If they're not able to do that, then there will be problems within the ranks of the Taliban, and resultantly a lot of people will move towards organizations such as ISKP.
Do you think this could be the actual agenda of the Indians to make sure there should be divisions within the ranks of the Taliban?
See, if you monitor NRF, social media, national resistance, the so-called national resistance force of Amrullah Saleh, if you monitor them, they are practically cheering.
This National Resistance Force has been recognized by the Americans now.
And
So if they are recognized,
there are-
that means that they could be
Yeah.
getting some sort of financial support also, and the military support as well.
There are known contacts between them and the Indians. The Indians have been, known to host them back in India. A lot of the people from NRF who escaped Panjshir and who escaped Afghanistan because of the Taliban, coming to power again, a lot of them moved to India. So, that NRF connection, the Wall Street Journal report very recently, which mentioned that, a lot of the NRF people, especially intelligence officials that were trained by the US, very well trained, and then elite forces, they have joined ranks with the ISKP, and, the resultantly you saw the attack in Kabul. That was a very effective attack. The chief military strategist of the Taliban was taken out, and then the commander of the 313 brigade, the most elite forces that the Taliban have,
Badri.
Al-Badri, he too was taken out in that attack. So that is a very significant attack. This is an attack
They
that
know who
could have
to
been
kill and
carried out
how
with
to kill
very
and
good
where to kill.
intelligence. Exactly.
So they have a lot of information, they have a lot of connections also, so they know what is exactly happening on ground. Now, Jalal Sahab, another important point. As if you go into the past, sir, Jalal Sahab, looking at the Chinese history, let's talk about the Ming dynasty that was there for about 300 years, around 300 years. And eventually this Great Wall of China was there to make sure that no more attacks from the north, that means from the Mongols. Now, interestingly, sir, that was not only the reason to protect the sovereignty or the land, it was perhaps because of the old Silk Route and their trade, because at that time, sir, the economy of that region was thriving and they were doing really great. Trade with the Egyptians all the way from the Asia into Middle East into Central Asia. The point is now, sir, even now, if you look at the current strategy in 2020, 2021, it's almost the same. The trade route of the Chinese towards the western side, that needs to be blocked. Now they call it BRI or OBOR, and especially another very important section of the same project is CPEC. The Americans and the Indians again on the same page, sir, putting a check on the Chinese growth, exactly the same agenda. So, sir, this is not something new, sir. Maybe times have changed, but the overall ideology has remained the same, sir.
See, the objectives, American and Indian objectives, they have its relationship with China's economy, so they want to block it. In their strategy papers, they have been identifying Russia and China as their competitors or adversaries. And they also know that since they had imposed sanctions against Russia, since that day, China and Russia, they have been cooperating with each other very closely. And this cooperation is going to increase if they get the connectivity through Afghanistan, if they get that connectivity, that facility of connecting various areas. So you'll see that Eurasia will be coming up in a big way, and at the same time, the Central Asian resources are going to be utilized by China and Pakistan and others. And this region is going to be definitely economically and also militarily, this region will be strong enough to deal with any crisis. There was a time when the Russians were interested, when the Americans were interested in copy gas and also in constructing the railway line, etc. because that was the time when they thought that they'll be the ones who will be controlling Afghanistan through their lackeys and through their proxies. Once they saw that they are no longer there and it will not be possible for them to control Afghanistan physically because Ashraf Ghani has run away from there, then I think the only solution they had of denying the same facility to their enemy. And when they have to deny this facility, it will be through chaos, commotion, through creation of instability in that area, through injecting terrorism so that all the countries, neighboring countries of Afghanistan, they have the taste of insurgency or at least terrorism. So that was perhaps the idea right from the beginning. The moment the Americans had decided to leave Afghanistan, although the negotiations were going on within the with the Taliban and also within the Afghan various factions, but during that period, I think they have been preparing this plan of propping up insurgency or propping up various terror groups within Afghanistan, and they must have kept a lot of money there already. That money may already be there to be utilized. So it is not at the spur of the moment that they just got an idea, so look, that we can do this thing. I think once they had planned that they are going to leave Afghanistan, naturally they would have worked out their alternative objectives, their strategy to achieve those objectives, and the means to be utilized, and they must have kept. You will recall that some 7 years ago uh, when Hamid Karzai had mentioned that the American helicopters are being used and they are shifting certain IS groups. That was the time when they were shifting the people who had gone from Chechnya and also from Dagestan and some from the Central Asian states. We also know that something like 3,000 to 4,000 people from Dagestan and Chechnya had gone and joined the rank of Daesh in Syria. And after their defeat, these are the people who are looking for some unstable areas where they can hide themselves. So this was the best place where they got every support, all type of support from Americans, and they were placed here. You will recall that recently the Russians also had complained that something like 2,000 ISIS fighters, these have been placed closer to the Central Asian borders. So these things are not hidden. I think they have planned that much in advance, created the situation, created the condition, and also placed the resources for them. And now these people are coming out, will be joining, and I think there'll be a very, very big challenge for the Taliban because they are not prepared to fight that kind of war. So the regional countries have to help them in a big way with sharing of intelligence, providing them the real-time intelligence and also the real-time picture of the various hideouts, etc. And then the military capability is to be given to them so that they can counter. So I think this is a challenge which the regional countries have to face, and for this, I think the intelligence chiefs of various of these countries have to meet and work out a plan. Otherwise, I think things are moving in a very faster pace, and this terrorism is picking up in Afghanistan in a big way. This killing of Abdullah, who was their very senior military leader, indicates that the other leaders are also going to be targeted. Now, this will be a very serious threat. Taliban are now going about in various areas, really thinking that they have the control over the country. But I think this threat of terrorism is going to
Because if a guerrilla war is
create
going on,
problems
I
for
mean,
them, and they are
you
going to
can't
lose their
underestimate
leadership.
your enemy. It has a very different kind of a concept. So obviously that is the real problem. Now, Professor Saab, another important area, and that is, we should, I think, believe it now. Islamic radicalization, sir. Whatever happened during the last week or so, or maybe for 2 weeks in all over Pakistan, especially in Pindi, Islamabad, Faizabad, all along the GT road, sir, is something which is not very well perceived by the Western world and by even a lot of majority of Pakistanis, sir. Then what is this going on, sir? Yes, I do understand that the government is ready to talk to the TTP leaders also, if there could be a solution, despite the fact that they are killers, they have killed our children, women, elderly, and everyone, the soft targets in particular. the government was always ready, not this time or this particular government. Even I remember when Rehman Malik was the interior minister, he said, you know, as he used this word that naraz Baloch, those angry Baloch people who are living abroad in exile, they should come into the mainstream and at least start off negotiations. So, sir, the government was showing some sort of flexibility, but that was perhaps taken as their weakness even then. Now, sir, looking at whatever happened as far as TLP is concerned, or so many other parties are looking at it, that, you know, if you want to get your issues taken care of, or if you really want that your demands should be met, there is one way: collect people, walk towards, march towards Islamabad. And yes, if you have a certain number and there comes a situation where you can have a direct conflict with the law enforcement agencies, the government is going to intervene, and it is going to be a win-win situation for both, perhaps, rather more for the culprits, I would say, if I may use that word, sir. So, sir, if this is the agenda, if this is the kind of concept that prevails, sir, then God bless Pakistan.
No,
Why are we worrying about what is going on in Afghanistan?
I think that we are too much focusing on Afghanistan instead of Pakistan. That is
exactly
thing.
what my point is.
We have been pleading that, oh, there is an anarchy in Afghanistan, but unfortunately for 3 weeks, there was anarchy in Punjab as well. Our major cities and the major artery for a trade was blocked, and the country suffered a lot, people suffered a lot. We have to not forget that when there are radicalized militant ideas or organizations whom you support, and if they have some political agendas, certainly they have a spillover impact. And we have seen this spillover impact in the last 20 years in case of our entire country, and then armed forces fought back and we returned to the normalcy. Now, if the government of Pakistan is once again thinking that through the dialogue they can establish the writ of the state, I think history is not guiding this kind of a thing. History reveals that where the criminals or anybody who is not a criminal, whatever he has a big thing in his hand or mind, for a, you can say, very high profile sort of thing, even if he violates the rules of the law or any kind of a thing, he must be treated by the law. The government has shown, whatever the reason could be, of course the government knows it better, but if I can follow the information minister and the interior minister, they are the main key. Interior minister is for law enforcement and information minister is the spokesperson. The way the resilience they have shown in the beginning to treat the criminals or the people who are involved in the criminal act, killing of the police, then it means that at that time they have a resilience show, but then the ulama entered, some other people entered, and as a result, the way the comments we have seen between the from that party and critique over it, there is some kind of a, unfortunately, what you call it, miscoordination.
Or difference of opinion also. So how to
difference of opinion is always there in the democratic society, but we have to not forget this will be a new kind of a thing like MQM in Karachi. Then there was a military operation. You have to do, and we have to keep in mind.
But sir, MQM was limited to Karachi and Hyderabad.
Yeah,
they are all over.
Tariq-e-Labak, Pakistan, it's an urban phenomenon. In every mosque,
party to collect the most votes.
They can. But only the reason is that government is reluctant to act.
And why is that?
If they broken the car of the common man, who will pay? If they kill the policeman, who will bear the burden? If the
no cases on them, you have released everyone on top of that. I mean,
then I think that
what sort of a message is it?
Then anyone who kills the others, these courts are who are you can say assigning the death sentences or these kind of things. Then there is no one is criminal in this country, frankly speaking. That if you are ready to talk with them, you have to talk with the TTP, you have to talk with the Baloch, you have to talk with the others who are killing your law enforcement agencies, soldiers, your policemen, and now you are saying that, oh, let them to go. I think then if I commit a crime or you commit a crime, then everyone is here free. Then why you are talking about that the Nawaz Sharif or the President Zardari or XYZ were involved in the economic corruption? It was a mere political slogan. You are relieving, you are not dealing, you are not arresting hardcore criminals, the murderers. And then you are talking about that there will be a state will be going to have a rule of law. We have to think alternatively. This is a very clear, according to theory, according to any kind of a thing, this kind of a you can say, thing is always leading to a bigger crisis.
Now, Dr. Saab, I'll just give you a little example. It was funny also, but it was very scary at the same time. You know, when you are on social media, especially on Facebook, as they call it, Meta, what's the new name? Meta, right? Now, the interesting part was, Dr. Saab, that exactly during the same days, in 2016, even 2017, you know, TLP was, you know, you get those memories, right? And it was the TLP marching towards Islamabad, all the exit and entrance points were closed. And you know, the interesting part was that this is exactly what they'd done earlier also. Burned the cars, killed the civilians, attacking on the policemen. Nothing happened then. And slowly and steadily they started gaining a lot of power. And eventually they became a party which was allowed to contest in the election, and look at the number of votes around, I don't know whether it was 27 lakh or 22 lakh, but and that's a huge number. And then once Khadim Rizvi died, sir, look at the number of people who attended the funeral.
Look,
I mean, that is also something to ponder upon.
Faisal, we have to, if it is a political force, following is there, agreed they were following, there is a grouping, there is a school of thought, there is some kind of thing. We do not question their credentials, but the question is who permit them or gave them this right to kill the policemen who were on the duty? Who gave them this right to stop my truck or my car or destroy my car? I think the state is responsible. Last night I was hearing last evening I was hearing the Prime Minister of Pakistan's speech. He was struggling to prove that why we are or how the government is countering with the inflation. But did we have any analysis that in the last 3 weeks, how much you can say revenue we lost, how much people became unemployed, and how long this kind of demonstration will be having a longer impact? So these are the issues on which we have to think. Closing the GT road means cutting your lifeline. If you see if you see Indian strategies, war fighting strategies, their major war fighting strategies that to go and cut this supply chain. Here your own people are cutting the supply chain, and then you are saying that we are unable or there is an inflation. I think there is a responsibility.
Sometimes you really have to take certain decisions and you have to implement them, whether you like them or you don't. That becomes a necessity.
No, now, this is ad hocism is not today everywhere.
But sir, this is how they could have taken a decision at a very certain point.
If you are talking about the institutions, ad hocism is in the certain institutions as well.
You have to be consistent with your policy towards a group like TLP. The messaging when the TLP came to fame during the last government, you know, you can see that the messaging from the state, different organs of the states were dealing differently, different messaging from them. That consistency that is required to deal with a group like that was not there. This time, you know, people are finding it very, very hard, you know, the concerned people, the interior minister and others, you know, who are responsible for dealing with this phenomenon.
He wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, they are very,
hear anything from
finding it, they're finding it very difficult to, you know,
and
say anything.
And what Mufti Munib Saab said.
Yeah, because the previous narrative, you know, it's everything there. The
sir, as long as Mufti Munib was in charge and he was getting a certain salary, a good protocol when he was the chairman of the Urut Hal committee, everything was fine. The moment no, sir, this also happens.
Look, as a citizen of Pakistan, I can respect whosoever is interior minister, whosoever is information minister, because if I'm not going to respect them or follow or
I'll just get back to you, sir. Just
honor their statements, then it means that I don't believe in the organized society. If we believe in the organized society, we have to trust on them, and there's a need to tackle these kind of the groups more with the rule of law.
The writ of the state cannot be compromised upon. I totally agree with Dr. Saab.
You have suffered.
No, quick comment, sir.
Was not there in the
when a national security advisor says that he's not going to attend the conference that is going to be held in New Delhi, sir, where the national security advisors are going to be there, and you know they're going to present their own point of view. But interestingly now, MAHSUD Saab, one area which is very, very important, and that is that Pakistan won't be there, and the way India is going to advertise that, and they will be able to, you know, narrate their own point of view.
I think it's a good decision. It's a good decision, because if our national security advisor was there, we were going to we were legitimizing India's role in Afghanistan, and we do not.
Sir, quick comment, and then
frankly, you cannot deny India their due role in Afghanistan. They are a regional country, they are a regional power. If I were the national security advisor, I would go to India, I would attend that conference, and I would put forward Pakistan's point of view very, very clearly. I wouldn't let India take the center stage and, you know,
India
try to try to, you know, just hijack the whole narrative on Afghanistan. I wouldn't allow for that.
Well, Jalsab, what is your take on this particular point, sir? Because at the end of the day, I think it's important. We should learn from our mistakes and move forward very carefully. But, sir, we have to keep in mind that now there is a potential threat to Pakistan via Afghanistan and whatever is happening out there, sir. And the Indians, I mean, the way the Western powers, everybody is getting on the same page, that's a huge threat to Pakistan, sir. General Saab.
I think it's a very good decision Pakistan has taken, because Pakistan all along has been saying that India is a spoiler and it has nothing to do with the peace in Afghanistan. So we have been opposing even their presence in various conferences wherever the conference was held, even with the Americans or with the Russians. We have always been saying that Indians have nothing to do here. And it was absolutely right, because we have seen that Indians were promoting terrorism against Pakistan from Afghan soil. So naturally, even today, this is what they want. They'll be doing the same from Afghanistan. Their objectives haven't changed, but the methodology is going to change. If Pakistan attends that, then it lends legitimacy to the Indian stand that they have something to do with the Afghan issue. So naturally, they'll be able to find a place in future conferences.
But Pakistan, what if the Russian foreign NSA is there, or other NSAs are there? What is that supposed to mean? That Pakistan would be out and rest of them would be in?
Pakistan has to be a little proactive. We have to convince Russian and Chinese NSAs or Chinese government that they should not participate. Otherwise, Pakistan, I mean, we will be reluctant to help out in these situations, or we can tell them that it will be counterproductive. Whatever efforts we have been making in Iran, for example, we held this conference recently, we saw this conference in Iran, India was not invited there. This is the stance which Pakistan has to promote, and it must be discussed with various neighboring countries. Pakistan definitely cannot be...
And the Russian NSA, they attend the meeting, sir, that conference.
You see, if somebody attends the meeting, even then it will not carry that value when Pakistan is not there. Pakistan has been the key player. Don't forget that Pakistan was the country which facilitated America to get out of this place. So Pakistan's position is the key position. If Pakistan doesn't attend this conference, it will not have that kind of importance which ordinarily the satellite conferences should have. Pakistan is a key player. So you can't ignore it. Indians were very kind. I mean, even you just look back about a month and a half ago, or 3 months ago, when India was president, or they were chairing the Security Council, and they were the president, they didn't allow Pakistan to even come up to clarify their position, clarify our position. The Afghan representative was leveling all sorts of allegations against Pakistan, and they didn't allow us to even clarify. So that was strategy. Now they have failed in that, and they want to remold their strategy. They want to rework. Now they want to acquire. First of all, they want to have legitimacy. They want to tell the international community that they are also very much part of this process. So they are involved in Pakistan. Pakistan is the genuine player. And
well, sir, I think that's a very, very long debate. But General Saab, we need to do a couple of more shows on the same point, because we need to clarify what exactly is going on and how to handle it, and the situation which is getting pretty much out of hands. I mean, one has to look into the real and actual issues. But thank you so much, sir, for your participation in the show, sir. Thank you so much once again, and it was a pleasure having you, Dr. Saab, as always. Thank you so much, MAHSUD Saab, for your presence as well. And that's all we have for this. I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.